Hello, welcome to February 9th. Well, happy African History Month. Welcome to February 9th, day 9 of, let me see. Yeah, that's better. Welcome to February 9th. It's day 9 of our monthly video series, our daily video series on African History Month. And today we want to talk about Marcus Garvey. Have you heard the name? Well, one of the things I've noticed is the mainstream, the powers that be, pick and choose who they want to spotlight because they want certain messages to be certain messages that they find acceptable, and there's certain messages they know threaten the status quo and could undermine their grip on power. And so, yeah, they definitely don't want to promote certain individuals and even certain ideologies of other individuals. So I'm quite sure we can think of some individuals they promote, but I'm aware of there's certain things that those individuals, some of those safe individuals, there are ideas and ideologies they promoted, things they spoke on that, that the powers to be don't want to be discussed, don't want to be advocated, don't want to be promoted, because it's problematic for their bottom line. But Marcus Garvey, if you haven't heard of him, you should. He wore many hats, and he was an entrepreneur. He was an entrepreneur. He was a political leader, a speaker, publisher. He was also a journalist, and his core ideology was Pan-Africanism, which meant that African peoples all over the globe should unite to create some type of synergy in achieving their agendas of and achieving their aims of liberation. And it's a beautiful, and it's a very, it's common sense, but there's a reason why you have your so-called African Americans, why you have your, you've got your Africans over there, you've got the, Africans in the Caribbean, who aren't, there's reason why a lot of these divisions were created. It was to stop people from uniting together, pooling their power, pooling their resources, and challenging, those who, the dominant powers. And yeah, so his philosophy was one of, if we've got, people in Africa who are fighting against these oppressive regimes, who are suffering from oppression, state-sponsored terrorism, and you've got people in the United States who are victims of oppression, racism, discrimination, state-sponsored terrorism, murders, all of these things, the very same things. There's no reason why there shouldn't be an amount of unity in moving forward to achieve liberation as for all, instead of just this group over here fighting separately, this group over here fighting separately, and making it easier for the powers to be to squash out these individual pockets of resistance, as opposed to coming up in one large mass and fighting the power together. But that in itself made him a very dangerous individual. But how he went about promoting, achieving liberation also made him a problem. Something that I've noticed that in a lot of Black liberation movements, socialists or communists tend to be like in the periphery, saying, yes, liberation. And what we need to do is, we need to have one central source, and let's just pool all resources. That will solve the problem. And Marcus Garvey was smart enough to say, wait a minute, that's not in our best interest. As black people, that is not in our best interest to abandon capitalism in terms of just going to let all these resources being put under one authority, and then that authority choosing to distribute resources as they saw fit. No, that's not going to help black people. Like, that's going to hurt black people. In fact, that's probably going to be one of the worst things to happen to black people, is such a system. Because he realized if white supremacy is a problem, it's a problem whether it's a government that's claiming to be capitalist, or if it's a system where you have government distributed resources. It's going to be a problem, and it's going to affect black people in a disproportionate factor negatively. This is not going to be for our benefit. That's one of the things I really find interesting about Marcus Garvey. Because what he did was, he was not, like I said, he was an entrepreneur, and he started the Black Star Line. So among other things, his Black Star Line, he had ships, but he realized that economic power, and we spoke about this with Black Wall Street, that economic power was an essential component to achieving the liberation of black people. Point blank, period. I mean, even if you look at today, you've got various organizations who have, nonprofits who have as their stated goals, and some are run by black people, to, stop police brutality, to fight for, the black community, to improve the black community. But where do they get their money from? Because remember, in order to operate, you're going to need money. And a lot of these organizations are getting money from outside. In many cases, like I said, on the periphery, where you have these socialist organizations on the periphery funneling money to them. Of course, with that money comes the requirement that socialism is the aim. But that's the issue. I mean, in order to exist, you're going to need funding. You're going to need capital. You're going to need money. You're going to need resources. You need to pay people. You need to, whether it's to get materials to distribute, to get out there information, all of that takes money. And so if your philosophy is we don't need money, we're going to turn our back on money, money is evil. How's your organization running? How's your organization existing? How are the people that are, whether working for your organization, getting paid, or how are the people who are volunteering for your organization feeding themselves? Because that's critical. If you expect people to volunteer to promote your organization's ideals, how are they surviving? Where do they live? How do they put food in their cupboard? How do they put clothes on their back? Okay, so they're working for somebody. And if they're working for somebody else, then what that's saying is that's time that they can't spend to devote to the cause. It takes money. And that's why one of the things that Marcus Garvey focused on, which was so great, that he realized that money was going to be a necessary component in building a machine to liberate black people throughout the planet. And so he founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. And so it was devoted to securing social, political, and economic freedom for black people. Like I said, he had founded the Black Star Line, and by 1920, it had 4 million members. He wanted to invest in Liberia originally, but the European nations had their own designs of Liberia, and they put up so much resistance against him. So he focused on education and independence for black people, and he realized that, of course, education is a critical component, because we're going to need, in building a thriving community and building a thriving society, you're going to need so many facets of expertise. You're going to need doctors. You're going to need lawyers. You're going to need farmers. You need to have all of these different things, and that takes education. You're going to need people who know how to build. You're going to need people who know, in today's world, you're going to need people that know technology. So all of these factors are things that he was focused on, and this is why he is one of the most pivotal figures in the modern liberation discussion, because he actually inspired the names that are commonplace and that are, that are dinner table conversation. Those names, they were inspired by him. Malcolm X's father was a proponent of Garvey's message. That's like, just think about that. This is the guy before the guy, So we know about Malcolm X. We know about Martin Luther King. We know about Elijah Muhammad. This guy is the guy that inspired so many others. It's also interesting because he had said that a statement he had made about communism was, "It is a dangerous theory of economic and political reformation because it seeks to put government in the hands of an ignorant white mass who have not been able to destroy their natural prejudices towards Negroes and other non-white people. While it may be a good thing for them, it will be a bad thing for the Negroes who will fall under the government of the most ignorant, prejudiced class of the white race." Think about that. Think about that, because this is something that the current, communists and socialists will not discuss or will not admit, even though, despite the fact that they will sit here and say that white supremacy is rampant in this country. They will say that in today's current political climate, oh, look at all the people that voted for Trump. They're racist. Okay. And your solution is to put our hope and faith in the hands of these people, not just our hope and our faith, all of our resources, the resources which we will be dependent upon to live, in the hands of these people to determine who gets fed, what we get, what is apportioned to whom. This is the solution that's being proposed by these individuals. That's why Garvey, I think this is one of the main reasons why people do not want to talk about Garvey, especially the mainstream does not want to promote Garvey's ideals, because they do not want black people to become beneficiaries of capitalism. See, right now, there's been a message has been promoted that black peoples have in the past have been the victims of capitalism, and it's promoted in the sense that if capitalism exists, black peoples will be the victims of capitalism. Number one, that wasn't really capitalism, and we're going to even talk about somebody else who spoke about that. But on the other hand, even if that was capitalism, if we, in today's current situation, things have changed enough that we can change the dynamic so that we are no longer the victims of capitalism, but we can become the beneficiaries of capitalism. And this is a message that many people do not want the Black community as a whole to embrace. So that's one of the just things why I one of the reasons why I know he's not spoken of. His ideas were truly revolutionary and truly about empowering Black people as a whole. He saw a bigger picture. He saw in multi dimensions that it was necessary for, Black people to advance on several fronts in order to truly secure our liberation. There's so much more about Marcus Garvey, and I'm going to get back to him later on in the month. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. And just say, I encourage you to look up some more about Marcus Garvey, read about him, do some basic research. He's plenty of books about him. He's a really important figure. And I think his message is so pertinent even for today's the Black communities of the world today. Thank you for joining me for day 9, and I will see you tomorrow.